Welcome to your Full Circle Friday. My name is Sara, a certified trauma recovery coach with Full Circle Wellspring. Trauma causes a disruption in our neural pathways and can halt survivors from staying connected to themselves, others, and the world around them. They can abandon or exile parts of themselves behind a wall of shame and fear. These episodes are dedicated toward understanding trauma and learning about outside resources, adjunctive services, recommendations, techniques, coping skills, and more to support and encourage the survivor on their journey back to their authentic selves. Let's get started. Today's topic is neurobiology. Last week, in talking about medication, I shared a bit about the psychological and psychiatric aftermath that trauma can bring. Today, I'd like to explain some of the neurobiological effects of trauma. You may not realize that the brain is developing for about 25 years of a human's life. The significance of that when it comes to trauma means that during the developmental years especially, the brain is quite literally maturing within the context of dysfunction, chaos, abuse, neglect, trauma, and chronic stress. This equates to forms of brain damage during those early years. It is true that adults who suffered childhood trauma can have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, an enlarged amygdala, and a smaller hippocampus. These are actual biological changes to these parts of the brain that can be seen on brain scans. The effects of just the underdeveloped prefrontal cortex could mean impaired cognitive behavior, difficulties with decision-making and logistical planning, reduced self-awareness, and compromised social skills. The enlarged amygdala leaves survivors with problems with regulating emotions, and more importantly, an overactive trigger response, hypervigilance, and high increases in overreaction to stimuli and threats. The smaller hippocampus strips survivors of spatial navigation, memory function, learning abilities, focus, and processing. Is it any wonder that developmental trauma survivors have social issues, memory deficits, trouble with executive functioning skills, and overwhelming flight, fight, freeze responses to what others might say are, quote, normal everyday stressors? I chose this topic today to help survivors understand themselves better and to let them know that I see them. And I also chose this today so that anyone listening to this will see a need to have compassion on what others are going through. You may not understand why your coworker went into shutdown freeze state just because the boss's high energy was a little dramatic that morning, but maybe now you can try to give some grace. As Oprah always says, it's not what's wrong with you. The question is what happened to you. This is, of course, just a basic intro to neurobiological after effects of trauma. I haven't even touched on what happens due to the increased or decreased levels of some hormones and chemicals on the body and brain over an extended period of time. Prolonged exposure to stress, trauma, abuse, and dysfunction during the brain's development is toxic to the body and the brain. Survivors, yes, this may have happened to your brain during your trauma. And this is exactly why you are not broken, cursed, or fragmented. You are a whole person who has survived a whole lot. There is no shame in your behaviors and impairments due to this. You are not alone. There is fascinating new science out there working on your behalf to research, treat, and rewire some brain impairments. Neuroplasticity is real, and there are wonderful new ways of, quote, retraining the brain using reverse engineering to move you out of survival mode and into thriving mode. If you want more info, you can check out the DNRS, Dynamic Neural Retraining System. This should give you some encouragement and acknowledgement of the plight that you're in. If you want more info or need help beginning to explore this, feel free to reach out to me. Also, try to breathe through this information. It is daunting, yes, it's a lot. What happened to you is not the end of your story, though. I'm happy to tell you that there is hope through science, therapy, coaching, lots of effort and practice. Your brain is here to work for you and with you, not against you. Let's start making that a reality together. You got this, and I would love to help. Be well. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Trauma Survivorhood. This has been written and created by your host, Sara, a trauma recovery coach. For more info about me, trauma recovery resources, or to check out our support groups, classes, free survivor circles, private coaching, and more, visit www.fullcirclewellspring.com. Schedule a complimentary 20-minute discovery call to see if coaching is right for you. For the latest info on schedules and updates, follow us on Facebook at Full Circle Wellspring. All other media, social links, blogs, and show notes are posted in the episode guide below. Until next time, be well, survivors.